What is Claude Code?
Claude Code is Anthropic's official AI-powered CLI tool that helps developers write, edit, debug, and understand code directly in the terminal.
How do you start Claude Code?
Run Claude in your terminal from any project directory to start an interactive session with the AI assistant.
What is the key benefit of working in Claude Code's agentic mode?
Claude Code can read files, write code, run tests, and execute shell commands autonomously, completing complex multi-step tasks end-to-end.
How do you give Claude Code access to your entire project?
Navigate to your project root before starting Claude Code. It will automatically have context of all files in the working directory.
What prompt should you use to ask Claude to read and understand a file?
Read a file name and explain what it does, or simply read the file name before asking questions about its contents.
How do you ask Claude Code to fix a bug?
Describe the bug and what you expected. This function returns null when the user has no orders, but it should return an empty array instead.
What is the best way to ask Claude Code to refactor code?
Be specific about the goal. Refactor this function to use async/await instead of callbacks, or extract this logic into a separate helper function.
How do you get Claude Code to write tests?
Write unit tests for function/file, covering edge cases including null inputs, empty arrays, and boundary values.
What is the /help/ command?
Running /help inside Claude Code displays available /commands, keyboard shortcuts, and usage information.
What does the /clear command do?
/clear resets the conversation context, clearing all prior messages and starting a fresh session.
What is the /compact command?
/compact compresses the conversation history to save context space while preserving the essential information.
What does /cost show?
/cost displays the token usage and estimated API cost for the current Claude Code session.
What is the Claude.md file?
A markdown file in your project root that Claude Code automatically reads to understand project-specific conventions, setup, and preferences.
What should you put in Claude.md?
Project overview, tech stack, coding conventions, common commands, environment setup instructions, and any behavioral preferences for Claude.
How do you ask Claude Code to search for something in your codebase?
Find all places where function/variable/pattern is used, or search for files containing keyword.
What prompt helps Claude Code understand a new codebase?
Explore the project structure and give me an overview of the architecture, key files, and how the main features work.
How do you ask Claude Code to explain a complex function?
Read at the file, line_number, and explain what this function does, including its inputs, outputs, and side effects.
What is the best prompt for adding a new feature?
Describe the feature clearly with context. Add a feature to component that behavior. It should work like example and follow the existing patterns in reference file.
How do you direct Claude Code to follow existing code style?
Match the coding style used in file name, or follow the same patterns as the existing controllers/services/models.
What prompt asks Claude Code to check for security issues?
Review, file or feature, for security vulnerabilities including XSS, SQL injection, and OWASP top 10 issues.
How do you ask Claude Code to optimize performance?
Identify performance bottlenecks in file/function and suggest optimizations, focusing on n+1 queries/memory usage/response time.
What is the best way to ask Claude to create a new file?
Create file name with specific content/structure. It should behavior/purpose and follow the conventions in reference file.
How do you instruct Claude Code not to modify certain files?
Do not modify file name. only change other file, or set exclusions in Claude.md.
What prompt gets Claude Code to generate a database migration?
Create a migration to add/modify/remove column/table with data type and constraints following the existing migration conventions.
How do you ask Claude Code to debug a failing test?
This test is failing with error message. Read the test and the code it tests, then find and fix the root cause.
What is the /vim shortcut?
/vim enables Vim key bindings for the Claude Code input, letting you use Vim motions for text editing.
How do you ask Claude to explain an error message?
Paste the full error. I'm getting this error, paste error. What does it mean and how do I fix it?
What prompt makes Claude Code run commands safely?
Run command and tell me the output. If there are any errors, explain what went wrong before attempting a fix.
How do you ask Claude Code to create an API endpoint?
Create a get/post/put/delete endpoint at path that behavior. It should validate inputs and return response format.
What is the best prompt for code review?
Review a file for code quality, potential bugs, readability issues, and adherence to best practices. Suggest specific improvements.
How do you get Claude Code to document code?
Add documentation to a file, explaining the purpose of each function, its parameters, return values, and any important behavior.
What prompt helps Claude handle a large refactor?
Break it into steps, first read I files, then plan the refactor, explain the approach, and only start changing code after I approve the plan.
How do you ask Claude Code to handle a merge conflict?
I have a merge conflict in file. Read the conflict markers and resolve it by keeping feature/applying both changes/choosing the correct version.
What is the best prompt for generating boilerplate?
Generate a component/class/module boilerplate for purpose following the same structure as existing example file.
How do you stop Claude Code mid-task?
Press Escape or Ctrl+C to interrupt the current operation and return to the prompt.
What prompt makes Claude Code ask clarifying questions first?
Before writing any code, ask me the questions you need answered to implement feature correctly.
How do you ask Claude Code to generate seed data?
Create a Cedar-4 model with n realistic sample records covering edge cases/varied scenarios.
What is a good prompt for improving error messages?
Review the error messages in file and improve them to be more descriptive, actionable, and user-friendly.
How do you ask Claude Code to add logging?
Add structured logging to file/function that logs events with appropriate log levels, debug/info/warn/error.
What prompt asks Claude to explain its plan before acting?
Before making any changes, explain exactly what you plan to do and why, then wait for my confirmation.
How do you use Claude Code to write a regex?
Write a regex that matches pattern description and test it against these examples, valid examples versus invalid examples.
What is the best prompt for environment setup?
Read the project structure and tell me exactly what commands I need to run to set up this project locally from scratch.
How do you ask Claude Code to suggest a data structure?
I need to store data type with operations needed. What data structure would be most efficient and why?
What prompt helps with CI/CD configuration?
Create a GitHub Actions/GitLab CI workflow that runs, tests/builds/deploys on trigger events for this framework project.
How do you ask Claude Code to handle pagination?
Add cursor-based pagination to the endpoint, returning per_page items per page with a next_cursor for subsequent requests.
What prompt generates API documentation?
Generate OpenAPI/Swagger documentation for the endpoint or file, including request/response schemas and example payloads.
How do you ask Claude to prioritize security in code?
Implement feature with security as the top priority. Validate all inputs, sanitize outputs, and explain any security decisions made.
What is the best way to ask about trade-offs?
What are the trade-offs between approach A and approach B for use case? Which would you recommend and why?
How do you ask Claude Code to write idiomatic code?
Rewrite this in idiomatic, Python/Go/TypeScript, following language best practices and community conventions.
What prompt gets Claude to generate a Docker file?
Create a Docker file for this language/framework app that is optimized for production with a multi-stage build.
How do you ask Claude Code to add type safety?
Add TypeScript type/type hints to a file, ensuring all function signatures, return types, and variable declarations are typed.
What prompt tests Claude Code's understanding?
In your own words, explain how feature/system works based on the code. Then identify any gaps or potential issues.
How do you ask Claude to generate fixtures for testing?
Create test fixtures for model/feature that cover a typical case, an edge case with empty values, and a case with maximum data.
What is the best prompt for async code conversion?
Convert this synchronous function/module to async/await, handling errors properly and preserving all existing behavior.
How do you ask Claude Code to add caching?
Add caching to function/endpoint with a n-minute TTL using Redis/in-memory/HTTP cache headers and cache invalidation for events.
What prompt improves a database query?
This query is slow, paste query. Analyze it and rewrite it to be more efficient. Suggest any indexes that should be added.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement rate limiting?
Add rate limiting to endpoint, allowing n requests per time window per user/IP, returning a 429 with retry after header when exceeded.
What prompt asks Claude to review architecture?
Review the current architecture of system/feature and identify any design issues, scalability concerns, or improvements to consider.
How do you ask Claude Code to write a CLI tool?
Create a CLI tool in language that behavior. It should accept flags/arguments and output format.
What is the best prompt for generating a README?
Generate a README for this project including overview, features, prerequisites, installation steps, usage examples, and contributing guide.
How do you ask Claude to handle authentication?
Implement JWT/session/OAuth authentication for framework, including login, logout, token refresh, and protected route middleware.
What prompt makes Claude Code write defensive code?
Implement feature defensively, validate all inputs at boundaries, handle all error cases explicitly, and never trust external data.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement webhooks?
Create a webhook handler for service that validates the signature, processes, event types, and responds within 5 seconds.
What prompt asks Claude to suggest variable names?
Suggest more descriptive names for these variables, list. The names should clearly express intent without abbreviation.
How do you use Claude Code to untangle spaghetti code?
This function is too complex. Break it into smaller, single responsibility functions, keeping the public interface the same.
What is the best prompt for implementing search?
Add full-text search to model/endpoint that searches, fields, ranks results by relevance, and supports filters/pagination.
How do you ask Claude Code to add feature flags?
Add a feature flag for feature using library/config, defaulting to disabled, so it can be enabled per user/environment.
What prompt makes Claude generate a changelog entry?
Based on the changes in the files, generate a changelog entry in keep a changelog/conventional format for version XXX.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement retry logic?
Add exponential backoff retry logic to API call/operation with max and retries, jitter, and logging of each attempt.
What is the best way to ask Claude Code to trace a bug?
Walk me through how data flows from input to output in this code and identify where bug symptom could originate.
How do you ask Claude to generate mock data?
Generate n realistic mock records for entity in JSON/SQL/CSV format, varying the fields to cover different scenarios.
What prompt asks Claude Code to create environment configs?
Create.env.example/config files for this project with all required environment variables documented with descriptions and examples.
How do you ask Claude to implement soft deletes?
Add soft delete functionality to model, so records are marked deleted _at rather than removed, and all queries exclude soft deleted records.
What is the best prompt for adding observability?
Add metrics, tracing, and structured logging to service/endpoint so we can monitor request rates, latency, and error rates.
How do you ask Claude Code to generate a data pipeline?
Create a data pipeline that reads from source, transforms data, and writes to destination, handling errors and partial failures.
What prompt asks Claude to explain a dependency?
Explain what library/package does, why it's used in this project, and what would need to change if we removed it.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement pagination with filters?
Add filtering and sorting to endpoint so users can filter by fields, sort by columns, and paginate results with limit/offset or cursor.
What is a good prompt for asking Claude to write SQL?
Write a SQL query that returns/aggregates/joins data description optimized for read performance/correctness/clarity.
How do you ask Claude Code to create a state machine?
Implement a state machine for entity with states list and transitions list, enforcing valid transitions and logging state changes.
What prompt makes Claude explain its approach?
Before implementing, explain your approach, the key decisions you'll make, and any alternatives you considered.
How do you ask Claude Code to add validation?
Add input validation to endpoint/form, ensuring field constraints. Return descriptive validation errors for each invalid field.
What prompt generates integration tests?
Write integration tests for feature that test the full request/response cycle, including database interactions and edge cases.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement event sourcing?
Refactor feature to use event sourcing, store domain events, rebuild state from events, and add event projections for queries.
What is the best prompt for upgrading a dependency?
I need to upgrade package from version A to version B. Read the changelog and migrate any breaking API changes in this codebase.
How do you ask Claude Code to add background jobs?
Create a background job that behavior triggered by event with retry logic, error handling, and progress logging.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement file uploads?
Add file upload support for endpoint, accepting file types up to size, storing in S3/local disk, and validating file contents.
What prompt asks Claude to write a deployment checklist?
Generate a pre-deployment checklist for this project covering environment variables, database migrations, cache warming, and health checks.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement search autocomplete?
Add autocomplete to search field that queries endpoint on key press with debounce ms delay displaying top n results.
What prompt makes Claude Code write accessible HTML?
Ensure component/page meets WCAG 2.1 AA standards, proper ARIA labels, keyboard navigation, color contrast, and screen reader support.
How do you ask Claude to generate GraphQL types?
Generate GraphQL schema types for entities, with queries for list/find, mutations for create/update/delete, and proper resolver hints.
What is the best prompt for extracting a service?
Extract logic from controller/class into a dedicated service class, following the single responsibility principle and dependency injection pattern.
How do you ask Claude Code to add monitoring alerts?
Define alerting rules for service that trigger when error rate/latency/queue depth exceeds threshold for duration.
How do you ask Claude Code to create a design doc?
Write a technical design document for feature covering requirements, proposed solution, alternative approaches, risks, and success metrics.
What prompt generates a database schema from requirements?
Design a normalized database schema for feature/application with tables, columns, data types, constraints, and foreign key relationships.
How do you ask Claude Code to refactor a monolith?
Identify bounded contexts in this codebase and propose how to extract module into an independently deployable service with a clear API boundary.
What is the best prompt for improving test coverage?
Analyze file/module and identify untested code paths. Write tests for the most critical gaps, prioritizing error handling and edge cases.
How do you use Claude Code to learn from a codebase?
Explain the design patterns used in this codebase, why they were chosen, and how they interact with each other.
What prompt asks Claude to suggest technical debt fixes?
Identify the top 5 pieces of technical debt in file/module, ranked by impact and effort, and suggest a remediation plan for each.
How do you ask Claude Code to implement a health check endpoint?
Add a /health endpoint that checks database connectivity/external service availability/disk space and returns status 200 OK or 503 with details.
What prompt asks Claude Code to review a pull request?
Review the changes in the files as if doing a code review, check for bugs, security issues, missing tests, and adherence to the project's coding standards.